displayed by Hamas and the so-called Palestinians. And I always use that word so-called. I'm going to open up tonight by Baila. Would you please give us a roundup, talk about this? I know this is a very difficult one.
It's been horrible. So here's what's been going on. So as we know, the bodies were released. They were supposed to release Shiri Bibas, Kfir, and you know what? I am so broken up with this that I have a blank with a name.
Well, the two little boys.
The two little boys. Yeah.
Ariel and Kfir.
This is just this is shaking me up incredibly. So what happened was they were going to identify the bodies, and after completing the identification process by the National Center for Forensic Medicine, and they did that in cooperation with the Israeli police, it just came out this evening that IDF representatives informed the Bibas family that their loved ones, Ariel and Kfir Bibas, a blessed memory, have been identified. According to their assessment, and these are professional authorities, and in accordance with the intelligence available to us and the forensic findings, these two little boys were brutally murdered in captivity. And it happened, according to what they say, in November 2023, which is about a month after they were captured. During the identification process, it was found that the additional body was supposed to be Shiri Bibas, but it turns out it wasn't. They have no clue who that woman is. Not only that, but no match was found for any other abductees. The body is not Shiri. Okay, the two little boys were identified, and they were identified to have been murdered in a brutal manner. But the other body of the woman is not Shiri. We don't know who she is. Nobody knows who she is. It's an anonymous body without identification. This is a serious violation by Hamas terrorist organization, which was required by the agreement to return 4 dead abductees.
Well, Baila,
it is to be demanded that Hamas return Shiri home along with the other abductees. Who is that body? Where is she? If she's alive and if she's still a hostage, where is she? How did they put a different body? Did question on purpose? That question, did they do this on purpose? And if they did they not think Rex was going to try to identify the body? Makes no sense. I'm telling you, I am lost for words.
Senseless and horrific.
They commit, everything they do is about psychological warfare. So when you go and you ask, did they do this on purpose? It's hard to imagine that they didn't. It's hard to imagine that somebody would do this to do what they did, but this is what they do. And psychological warfare is the game that they play every day. So,
yeah, to such an extent. By the way, do you know that they locked the coffins? Originally, they locked the coffins that needed to be opened with a key. I guess they should have been suspicious at that point.
There's no doubt in my mind that it was done deliberately. It was done on purpose. And as you mentioned, this is a grotesque violation of the first stage of the agreement. However, Baila, it's not, and Soya, it is not the first time they have violated the agreement, nor is it the last time they will violate any further agreements, if there are any further agreements.
Can you imagine the word agreement even? Agreement usually you make with the person, it comes from like agreeable. You're making it with a sane person that the two meetings of the mind, could you imagine making a meeting of the mind with a barbarian, with a person who commits monstrous acts? It's like making a deal with Hannibal Lecter,
And who
right?
are you going to sit down and make agreements with?
I'm going to put you in next to a live body. Please don't eat them. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
how do you make a deal with someone who committed such atrocities and then expect them to keep to the deal? So there really isn't, and the not funny, the insane part that keeps on being more and more insane is that this is not the first time. And think about it. I mean, even let alone today. I mean, we're not up to this part, but think about it. Somebody, and we know that it was probably Hamas, because in Tel Aviv, somebody planted 5 bombs.
Oh, yeah. That's
separate,
right.
5 separate pieces of transportation.
Right.
Three of them detonated on buses. Luckily, from my understanding, nobody was injured. It was 3 buses. But who do you think? What peace agreement?
Well, they messed up the time. They also messed up the timing too.
And they need to be carpet bombed. They need to be carpet bombed. They need to be cleaned out, wiped off the face of this earth, Hamas. They shouldn't be planted anywhere else, because when you're planting people and they shouldn't be provided money, they shouldn't be provided anything. And every single country should be standing together with Israel. It shouldn't just be the United States now.
But they're not. That's the crazy thing. The world is watching. The world is watching, and the world heard tonight how these babies, these precious little boys, were murdered in a brutal way. And as time goes on, we're going to get more details. How could somebody not have nightmares? I can't even.
What kind of details?
I can't even speak
Baila,
clearly.
what are we going to be told? We're going to be told that those 2 little babies who were so innocent and didn't have full cognition and understanding of anything other than just.
And what they did was on the coffin they wrote arrested. Do you know that? You know what they on the coffin of all these hostages, of all these dead hostages, they wrote arrested October 7, 2023. Little Kfir and little Ariel was arrested for what? What crime did they commit? Because they were born Jewish?
For being in their,
That's the crime?
in their home. They were for being innocent in their home.
And as Baila said, being born Jewish. I think this leads. I think this
That's
leads.
a crime.
That's a crime in their book. I think this leads to another thing. I think people should be aware that this is not a war over land. This war with Israel is a war. It's a religious war. It is a jihad. It's a holy war as far as they're concerned, based on their religious beliefs and faith.
Unholy war.
Unholy war. But it is not over land, because land they were offered, and they had an opportunity to have land. And they did, in fact, have land, the Gaza now, totally independently, without any restriction. There has been it wasn't a cage of any kind. It was an open, beautiful piece of land that they could have built a beautiful island of paradise on.
It could have been a tourist site. It could have been
all that money.
But I will say
that's
this.
What it was, and since 2005. But the so-called innocent, when you saw on TV or on wherever you watched your reports about the release of these remains of these few hostages today, what you saw were Palestinians, not just Hamas, ordinary Palestinians, cheering, singing, celebrating.
And I will say this:
when you look at this and you think to yourself, are these people innocent civilians? People say they're complicit, but you know something?
No innocent civilian in Gaza. I'm sorry to say.
Baila, they're not only complicit, they cooperate.
They cooperate very much. In fact,
they were part of. There are no innocent civilians there.
In fact, I will say this: that the United Nations, who's they're not much of a friend of Israel.
They're not much of anything.
But I will say that the United Nations rights chief said that the parading, because they were parading the bodies, at the parading of bodies in Gaza, and these words were abhorrent and flies in the face of international law. Hamas handed over the bodies of these Israeli children, and we all thought it was Shiri.
Well, I don't know. Does that you think
and also,
that leaves...
and let's not forget and give respect to the other hostage, the fourth hostage,